Hey, this is Dave. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. So today I have a special guest. We will call him Seven.
Hello, kids.
Yeah. So let me tell you about my day. What is this? Day three. Yesterday was day three before we get into something special that he's going to share. So yesterday I told you I had a little date with my wife. So we went to this place called Caitlin's, and it's really good food. But it's this family that just kind of opens just on Thursdays, but they do have a lot of dairy-free options. They even have this thing called Sam's Chicken, and even it's also vegetarian or dairy-free. And so I skipped out on their macaroni and cheese. I saw it and I was tempted, but I skipped out on the mac and cheese. And I also skipped on the mashed potatoes because even though mashed potatoes is non-dairy or supposed to be, their particular mashed potato looked like it had dairy on
Some
it. So
cream.
yeah, some sort of cream, which it looked amazing. So all I had was broccoli. I had some rice and some curry because I had some curry and some of that Sam's chicken with barbecue. But yeah, and then just had a simple dinner when I got home. So far so good. But Seven here is going to talk to us about, we're doing a 66-day challenge. We're giving something up. And in my case, I'm doing something related to food. But when you give something up or when you fast from something, it's not necessarily, food. You can give up other things. But he has some really cool stuff that he studied about. Was it Lent?
Lent, yeah.
Lent, and how they fast for. Well, why don't you tell us about it? How I'll give it up.
Yeah. So a few years ago, a friend told me to go to this church when I was pastoring in Winnipeg. It's called All Saints Church,
Okay.
and I started worshiping there. Several times just to check the place out, and they're an Anglican church, so the place is very cathedral. It looks very Catholic, but it was very interesting because they had a praise band, but you couldn't see the praise band. The praise band was hidden and sitting down, so it wasn't like a praise band in front with lights. It was a praise band on the corner, no one could see the band, so it was very unique. So I started going again, and they had this thing advertised, Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
And of course, as a religious leader, as a pastor, I know about Ash Wednesday, but I've never attended. But I decided to go, and I learned a lot. And I ever since then, I've kind of been doing it over and over again, just as a personal practice. And essentially, what I learned that night is that Ash Wednesday initiates 40 days of Lent. And there's different Christian traditions that do it differently, but that's the initial idea. So on Ash Wednesday, they burn palms, and there's physical ashes in front of you. Then the priest reads either from Ecclesiastes or from Genesis, where it says, "From ashes you were made, into ashes you will return." And the aspect of the verse is to remind you, it's to remind the listener that you are but dust, that your life is temporary, your life is fleeting, you're only here for a moment. And if you were to die right now, what in your life would be left unresolved?
Oh wow.
How many people do you still need to forgive? How many relationships need to be reconciled? What in your life have you not made time to address? Whether it is your pride, your selfishness, maybe it is your doubt, or even your commitment to your faith. So it initiates this thing for 40 days, and the first day is remember this, think about it, and then you are challenged to fast for something for 40 days. Kind of how Jesus was tempted for 40 days in the wilderness. But the fasting is interesting because it's not a fasting of food like Ramadan. It's a fasting from anything. It could be chocolate, it could be TV, it could be anything. Because the reality is that a lot of times when we think of fasting, we think in a very way like, I need to make my body suffer. And then when I'm suffering, I'll see my need for God. But the reality of fasting is that you have to ask yourself, what is preventing me from going into either a deeper relationship with God, into a deeper relationship with my wife, into a deeper relationship with my friends? What is preventing me from having a more profound spiritual commitment? And you choose something. And then you say, you know what, I realize that TV is what it is. I realize that dairy is what it is. I realize that it is maybe not for us, but maybe for some other people, it's alcohol. You know, this is what's preventing me. And the thing is that the things that we fast from are not always things that are bad for us. You know, as I was telling you when we were in the car the other day, that like personally for me, when I first became a Christian, God told me to get rid of a lot of things. Maybe you can, David will tell you about it later. But, you know, it was give up all these things. And I remember that I made the mistake of trying to get everyone to give up the same things. It was music, clothes, movies. The list was long.
You name it.
You name it, I gave it up. But then God took that conviction away from my heart. And then I was confused. I was like, God, did I mishear you back then? Or am I just too worldly right now to recognize that I desire bad things? But that's when God told me. He said, like, no, like, I told you to give up those things, not because they were necessarily bad. They might be, they might not be. But the reason you had to give it up was because it was bad for you at that time. The way that TV might not be bad for you, but it's definitely bad before the night before test. Pizza might not be bad for you per se, but it's definitely bad when you're trying to lose weight or if you're about to run a marathon. That staying up late is not bad, but if you need to get up early in the morning to go to work the next day, then you probably shouldn't do it. And I realized that what God was challenging me to do is to come inside of a fast. Fasting from these things, because these things were what at that moment were going to prevent me from drawing closer to God. And after 2 years, I came out of that experience with something I didn't have before, and that was discernment. And I think that's what fasting gives us. It's discernment. Because dairy might not be necessarily bad like what you're fasting for, you know, but when we come out of this experience, you might be able to discern something like, wow, you know, I realize that when I say I could never live with cheese, the problem wasn't that I like cheese. The problem is I just have no self-control. You know, sometimes that's what fasting does for us, you know. And in the practice of Lent, you give up something for 40 days. What is removing me from God? And you use this as a way to draw close to God, to fix your problems. And then on resurrection morning, on Easter morning, Sunday morning, you're ready for that experience. You've suffered what it means to forgive. You've suffered what it means to reconcile, because forgiveness and reconciliation is painful. Anyone who tells us differently has never done it correctly. It hurts to forgive somebody. It hurts to and most of all, it hurts to realize something while we fast. You know, like if you find out that you have no self-control, at the end, that's a hard realization, because you realize that you're not who you thought you were.
But at the same time, it allows improvement.
Exactly.
Because if you had never fasted, you'd never come to that conclusion, and therefore you can't improve.
Exactly, and I think that is the key part of fasting. It's and I think we need to walk that line carefully. It's God doing something in us, you know, God helping us improve, you know, and I'm not. We're in a Doctrine of Salvation class, so that's a hot topic right now. But I think the bottom line that we can all agree on is that we need to become aware of where we're failing, and we need a God to help us address those issues in our lives. And sometimes fasting from something is just what we need in order for our eyes to be open to something that's right in front of us.
Very, very good points. You know, I like some of the things that you said, because it sounds to me that whether you are of a religious background, or even if you're not from a religious background, some of these principles can, you know, they undergo any of those contexts. So even if you are wanting to challenge yourself, and maybe you're not a believer or anything like this, but just for that realization, that moment of learning from yourself, or just growth, personal growth, this is a great practice. So I want to invite you guys to challenge yourself. 66 days. Why did I pick 66 days? I kind of mentioned it in my very first video, but you know, studies have shown that in order to form a habit, 66 days it's a good number. Like it'll be in great. So if you want to, for me, I'm not necessarily as of now saying I'm going to give up dairy. I'm just doing the no dairy challenge for 66 days. After the 66 days, I'll kind of assess the situation. I'll see what I do. So I guess you have to stick around for that.
But
But
see what kind of discernment you gain.
yes, yeah, that's a good. Maybe I'll come back to that, and I'll invite you for that one. But thanks again for stopping by. I hope this was helpful. Listen, don't forget to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, and if you have any ideas of anything in my journey that you'd like to see, just go ahead and comment below. Also, if you disagree, if you agree, go ahead and put it. I would love to, pick on your brain or something like that. But thanks again, Seven, for stopping by. And if you like this guy, you want to feature him again, let me know. All right. So, peace.